They say neglect doesn't leave scars you can see, but it carves silence into your bones, the kind that hums beneath your skin like an old, broken hymn. Imagine this. A long dining table dressed in gold-trimmed plates and crystal glasses, laughter filling the air like expensive perfume. But beneath it all, something rots. You feel it. That quiet exclusion, that practiced invisibility, like a ghost watching the living perform. The camera of memory lingers on her, Kendall, the daughter who plans perfection for everyone else. For 10 years, her name has existed only on to-do lists, RSVP confirmations, and vendor contracts. She builds cathedrals of celebration for her sister, while her own birthday passes in the dark, forgotten, ignored, erased. But this isn't just about birthdays. It's about power, about the invisible chains of emotional hierarchy that families forge, who gets to be adored, and who must serve the illusion. Every family has its priesthood of golden children, and Kendall was not one of them. As her mother slides the thick cream envelope across the table, embossed, sealed, perfect, the ritual repeats. "Handle everything again, dear." The words drip with entitlement. Behind the polished smiles is a machine, an ancient kind of control dressed as tradition. You see it everywhere. In families, in institutions, in governments. Those who feed off your silence will always convince you that servitude is love. But something cracks this time. A fracture beneath the calm. A decade of swallowed pride splinters into something dangerous. A decision to no longer be the family's shadow. This is how revolutions begin. Not with noise, but with quiet defiance. That night, as the moonlight bleeds across her kitchen counter, Kendall does something unthinkable. She opens a new folder on her laptop. The title, My Birthday. Freedom begins as a whisper, before it becomes a roar. And in that whisper there's a strange kind of power, one that history itself has tried to suppress, because when the forgotten finally remember themselves, the entire order trembles. Kendall didn't sleep that night. Her hands hovered over the keyboard like a priestess over forbidden scripture. For 10 years she had built temples for others. Now she was building a trap. On the surface it looked innocent, a birthday plan, balloons, guest lists, catering options. But beneath the digital layers, there was code, precision, a choreography of exposure. She wasn't planning a party, she was designing a reckoning. Every vendor, every invite, every tiny detail was a mirror, each one reflecting her family's hypocrisy back at them. She made sure the caterer was the same one her parents once humiliated for serving her cold food. The decorations? Photos, but not of her sister, of moments they erased, childhood pictures where she was cropped out, school awards they forgot to attend, candids where she stood smiling beside empty chairs. This wasn't celebration, it was resurrection. You see, every oppressed soul has a breaking point, a moment where patience becomes poison, when love, denied long enough, mutates into something divine and dangerous. Kendall wasn't angry anymore. Anger is too simple. She was awake. Her plan wasn't just for them, it was for herself, for every invisible child, every forgotten friend, every worker who gave everything and got silence in return. She would turn her pain into a public mirror, so polished that her family couldn't look away. But rebellion is never clean. The truth isn't sterile. It devours, it purifies, it burns. That night she drafted the invitations. Every word was drenched in coded defiance. Join us to celebrate a decade of unseen devotion. Her mother didn't understand the subtext. Her sister didn't notice the tension. But deep down, Kendall felt it. The shifting energy. The room of her life was about to collapse. And before the world could hear her roar, she needed witnesses. So now, if you're still watching, type this in the comments twice to mark the beginning of your awakening. I remember myself. Because this story isn't just hers. It's yours too. Every viewer who's ever been forgotten, overlooked, dismissed. This is your echo rising. It began with gold envelopes. Heavy, embossed, impossible to ignore. Each one sealed with wax and stamped with a crest that Kendall designed herself. A phoenix made of shattered clock pieces, every second of her forgotten years. Now forged into symbol, her mother received the first. Turning it over in her hand, she smiled the way aristocrats do when they mistake rebellion for flattery. "How elegant," she murmured, unaware that the seal wasn't decoration, it was declaration. Inside, the message was simple. You are cordially invited to celebrate a decade of unseen devotion. The wording confused them. Her father called it poetic. Her sister thought it was vague but classy. None of them understood that the countdown had begun. Over the next week, Kendall orchestrated every element with surgical precision. The event was set at the same venue they'd used for her sister's 18th, chandeliers dripping in glass, floors polished like mirrors, and a stage that once carried laughter she never shared in. But this time, everything had shifted. The playlist wasn't cheerful, it was haunting. Slow piano, broken violins, soft whispers buried beneath the melody. The centerpiece? A single candle surrounded by 12 empty chairs, one for each forgotten birthday. As the night approached, the city lights seemed to conspire. The air felt heavier. Even the vendors whispered about the strange woman who smiled too calmly while planning her own party. When the guests arrived, they were greeted by portraits, dozens of them, photos from years past, perfectly edited, except Kendall's face had been cut out. In their place, a small inscription. Erased but not gone. Her mother's smile faltered. You celebrated perfection. You worshipped appearance. You mistook obedience for love. But I was watching, I was learning, and now, you will remember. Her sister tried to interrupt, but Kendall raised her hand, not in anger but in command. I don't want your apology. I want you to feel the silence I lived in, to hear it in every heartbeat tonight. And then, she smiled, the kind of smile born not from vengeance, but from reclamation. The audience clapped, not out of pity, but awe. Something sacred had unfolded before them, a ceremony of truth. Every hierarchy has its collapse, every dynasty its night of mirrors. And this, right here, was the moment the invisible became unforgettable. But the night wasn't over. What she had revealed publicly was only the surface. What waited beneath would rewrite everything her family thought they knew. The applause died slowly, like rain on metal. The lights stayed low, and just when the audience thought it was over, the curtains behind Kendall parted. A narrow corridor appeared, bathed in red light. A sign above it read, "The Room of Truth." Her family exchanged confused glances. Guests hesitated. This wasn't on the program. But Kendall's voice, amplified and steady, cut through the murmurs. The night isn't over. You see, for 10 years you celebrated someone else's reflection. Tonight you'll face your own. She guided her family toward the corridor, one by one. Cameras followed. Every movement streamed to the screen for the audience to witness. Inside the room, the walls were lined with mirrors, but not ordinary ones. Each mirror held embedded screens displaying live footage from past events. Birthdays, dinners, arguments, lies. The mirrors whispered, audio recordings Kendall had kept, looping softly in the background. Her sister's voice mocking her art. Her father calling her too sensitive. Her mother saying she'll understand someday, she's used to being in the background. The family froze. The audience sat in silence, hypnotized. Then Kendall spoke again, not from anger but almost serenity. Every family has a room like this. You call it love, but it's built on hierarchy, fear, and selective affection. Tonight the door stays open. Her mother cried quietly. Her father turned away. Her sister stared into the mirror, at herself, until the composure cracked. But Kendall didn't move closer. She didn't comfort, because this wasn't about forgiveness. It was about reflection, in its rawest form. When they finally stepped out, pale and trembling, Kendall whispered, "Now you see me, but more importantly, now you see you." The crowd erupted, not in applause, but in awe. They had witnessed something sacred, the exorcism of emotional history. "I've revealed us." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some guests began clapping, softly at first, then louder, as if something deep inside them had broken open. One woman whispered to her husband, "She's right, we all do it." The chandeliers flickered, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Kendall looked around, her stage now a sanctuary of truth. She wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. She was the mirror maker, the one who saw through the lie of perfect families and polite neglect. And in that moment she realized something profound. She didn't need their recognition anymore. The fire of recognition came from within. She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, "I don't need to be remembered. I just need to remember myself." The words echoed, through the hall, through the audience, through the cameras still recording. History was being rewritten live. The human ego is a delicate thing. It can pretend to be noble even as it rots. Her parents stood near the stage, pale, cornered, their power leaking from every nervous gesture. Her mother, desperate to salvage the family's dignity, grabbed the microphone. "Enough of this drama," she stammered. "We are not villains. We love you, Kendall. You just never asked for anything." That line, it was their last defense, the soft weapon of denial. Kendall's eyes hardened. She stepped forward, voice calm but sharp as glass. I didn't ask because you trained me not to. Gasps. Her father tried to interject. We gave you everything. No. You gave me tasks, not love, assignments, not attention. I was the event planner of your illusions. The audience began whispering. Her mother's facade cracked. We did our best. Kendall tilted her head slightly. Your best was selective. It only worked when I stayed small. Her sister sobbed quietly, mascara bleeding like penance, and for the first time Kendall felt peace, not satisfaction, not revenge, just peace, because she realized she didn't want them destroyed. She wanted them aware. She placed the mic down and turned toward the audience. Every family has a throne built from someone else's silence. And when the quiet one finally stands up, the crown always falls. Her words hung heavy in the air. And then, in a strange act of surrender, her mother stepped off the stage, removing her diamond necklace. She placed it on the table near the single candle and whispered, I'm listening. It wasn't redemption, but it was a beginning. The collapse had come, not through rage but through recognition. The clock struck midnight, the candles burned low, and the golden phoenix crest glowed faintly in the dim light. Its wings spread across the banner above the stage. Kendall stood before it, her silhouette framed by flickering shadows. Do you know why I chose the phoenix? She asked softly. Because it dies in fire. But it doesn't come back the same. She glanced toward her family, now sitting together for the first time in years, not united by love, but by truth. For 10 years I burned quietly. Every forgotten birthday was another piece of me turned to ash. But tonight I rise from it, not to destroy, but to begin again. The audience leaned in, some recorded, some simply stared, spellbound. She walked to the single candle and held her hand above its flame. Birthdays aren't about being remembered, they're about rebirth. And then she blew out the candle. The room went dark. A soft wind moved through the hall and projected onto the screen was one final message. You can erase my name but not my becoming. The music swelled, a slow, haunting piano rising into strings. Guests rose to their feet, unsure if it was applause or awakening that moved them. When the lights returned, Kendall was gone. The stage was empty, except for her chair, her nameplate, and a small note that read, Don't look for me, look within. Section 9, The Aftermath, begins next, when the night ends and the family and the guests must face what remains after truth burns away illusion. Section 9, The Aftermath. The next morning the world was still talking. Clips from the event flooded social media. The birthday revelation, they called it. Some praised her bravery, others called it cruel, but everyone agreed they couldn't stop watching. Her parents stayed silent, too ashamed to speak to reporters. Her sister deleted her accounts. The illusion was gone, but in their silence something unexpected began. Healing. Real painful healing. Her mother began calling her not to defend but to listen. Her father stopped talking in commands. And her sister, after weeks, sent a simple message. You were right. I didn't see you, but I see you now. Kendall never replied. She didn't need to. The silence she once feared had become sacred. A space of power, not punishment. The guests who attended said they could never forget that night. One of them started speaking to her estranged son again. Another left her job to pursue what she'd always wanted. The night had become legend, a psychological revolution wrapped in family drama. Because what Kendall did wasn't vengeance. It was resurrection. Years passed, the world moved on, but not entirely. That video that night became more than gossip. It became a mirror for millions who had lived their lives unseen. Kendall never returned to her old home. She disappeared quietly, somewhere by the sea where no one celebrated birthdays, only sunrises. But her legend grew. Books, documentaries, online forums, all speaking of the woman who turned neglect into awakening, and on every November 3rd, the date of her forgotten birthday, strangers worldwide light a single candle and whisper the same words she once spoke. I remember myself. Her family, now older and gentler, still gathers each year. No cakes, no grand decorations, just silence and reflection. Her sister sometimes reads Kendall's note aloud. You can erase my name, but not my becoming. That night, the birthday that became a revolution, outlived them all. Because Kendall's story wasn't about revenge. It was about remembrance, the resurrection of the invisible. And so this story ends not with applause but with invitation. If you've ever been the forgotten one, the invisible one, the silent one, this is your moment. Type in the comments twice to seal your rebirth. I remember myself. Because the unseen never die. They rise again and again until the world remembers them too.